the new God of spirit, the new gods of spirit, the new God of spirit, the new goddess of spirit, the new goddesses of spirit, the new goddess of spirit, the old God of spirit, the old gods of spirit, the old God of spirit, the old goddess of spirit, the old goddesses of spirit, the old goddess of spirit, the greater God of spirit, the greater gods of spirit, the greater God of spirit, the greater goddess of spirit, the greater goddesses of spirit, the greater goddess of spirit, the lesser God of spirit, the lesser gods of spirit, the lesser God of spirit, the lesser goddess of spirit, the lesser goddesses of spirit, the lesser goddess of spirit, the higher God of spirit, the higher gods of spirit, the higher God of spirit, the higher goddess of spirit, the higher goddesses of spirit, the higher goddess of spirit, the lower God of spirit, the lower gods of spirit, the lower God of spirit, the lower goddess of spirit, the lower goddesses of spirit, the lower goddess of spirit, the greater spirit of spirit, the greater spirits of spirit, the greater spirit of spirit, the lesser spirit of spirit, the lesser spirits of spirit, the lesser spirit of spirit, the higher spirit of spirit, the higher spirits of spirit, the higher spirit of spirit, the lower spirit of spirit, the lower spirits of spirit, the lower spirit of spirit, the major God of spirit, the major gods of spirit, the major God of spirit, the major goddess of spirit, the major goddesses of spirit, the major goddess of spirit, the minor God of spirit, the minor gods of spirit, the minor God of spirit, the minor goddess of spirit, the minor goddesses of spirit, the minor goddess of spirit, the superior God of spirit, the superior gods of spirit, the superior God of spirit, the superior goddess of spirit, the superior goddesses of spirit, the superior goddess of spirit, the inferior God of spirit, the inferior gods of spirit, the inferior God of spirit, the inferior goddess of spirit, the inferior goddesses of spirit, the inferior goddess of spirit, the ancestor God of spirit, the ancestor gods of spirit, the ancestor God of spirit, the ancestor goddess of spirit, the ancestor goddesses of spirit, the ancestor goddess of spirit, the ascendant God of spirit, the ascendant gods of spirit, the ascendant God of spirit, the ascendant goddess of spirit, the ascendant goddesses of spirit, the ascendant goddess of spirit, the descendant God of spirit, the descendant gods of spirit, the descendant God of spirit, the descendant goddess of spirit, the descendant goddesses of spirit, the descendant goddess of spirit, the transcendent God of spirit, the transcendent gods of spirit, the transcendent God of spirit, the transcendent goddess of spirit, the transcendent goddesses of spirit, the transcendent goddess of spirit, the past God of spirit, the past gods of spirit, the past God of spirit, the past goddess of spirit, the past goddesses of spirit, the past goddess of spirit, the present God of spirit, the present gods of spirit, the present God of spirit, the present goddess of spirit, the present goddesses of spirit, the present goddess of spirit, the future God of spirit, the future gods of spirit, the future God of spirit, the future goddess of spirit, the future goddesses of spirit, the future goddess of spirit, the authentic God of spirit, the authentic gods of spirit, the authentic God of spirit, the authentic goddess of spirit, the authentic goddesses of spirit, the authentic goddess of spirit, the synthetic God of spirit, the synthetic gods of spirit, the synthetic God of spirit, the synthetic goddess of spirit, the synthetic goddesses of spirit, the synthetic goddess of spirit, the progressive God of spirit, the progressive gods of spirit, the progressive God of spirit, the progressive goddess of spirit, the progressive goddesses of spirit, the progressive goddess of spirit, the regressive God of spirit, the regressive gods of spirit, the regressive God of spirit, the regressive goddess of spirit, the regressive goddesses of spirit, the regressive goddess of spirit, the ordinary God of spirit, the ordinary gods of spirit, the ordinary God of spirit, the ordinary goddess of spirit, the ordinary goddesses of spirit, the ordinary goddess of spirit, the extraordinary God of Spirit, the extraordinary gods of Spirit, the extraordinary God of Spirit, the extraordinary Goddess of Spirit, the extraordinary Goddesses of Spirit, the extraordinary Goddess of Spirit, the static God of Spirit, the static Gods of Spirit, the static God of Spirit, the static Goddess of Spirit, the static Goddesses of Spirit, the static Goddess of Spirit, the dynamic God of Spirit, the dynamic Gods of Spirit, the dynamic God of Spirit, the dynamic Goddess of Spirit, the dynamic Goddesses of Spirit, the dynamic Goddess of Spirit, the land God of Spirit, the land Gods of Spirit, the land God of Spirit, the land Goddess of Spirit, the land Goddesses of Spirit, the land Goddess of Spirit, the sea God of Spirit, the sea Gods of Spirit, the sea God of Spirit, the sea Goddess of Spirit, the sea Goddesses of Spirit, the sea Goddess of Spirit, the sky God of Spirit, the sky Gods of Spirit, the sky God of Spirit, the sky Goddess of Spirit, the sky Goddesses of Spirit, the sky Goddess of Spirit, the God of Spirit, the Gods of Spirit, the God of Spirit, the Goddess of Spirit, the Goddesses of Spirit, the Goddess of Spirit, the half God of Spirit, the half Gods of Spirit, the half God of Spirit, the half Goddess of Spirit, the half Goddesses of Spirit, the half Goddess of Spirit, the vessel of Spirit, the vessels of Spirit, the vessel of Spirit, the name of Spirit, the names of Spirit, the name of Spirit, the person of Spirit, the persons of Spirit, the person of Spirit, the persona of Spirit, the personas of Spirit, the persona of Spirit, the personage of Spirit, the personages of Spirit, the personage of Spirit, the personality of Spirit, the personalities of Spirit, the personality of Spirit, the personification of Spirit, the personifications of Spirit, the personification of Spirit, the image of Spirit, the images of Spirit, the image of Spirit, the imagination of Spirit, the imaginations of Spirit, the imagination of Spirit, the belief of Spirit, the beliefs of Spirit, the belief of Spirit, the thought of Spirit, the thoughts of Spirit, the thought of Spirit, the word of Spirit, the words of Spirit, the word of Spirit, the action of Spirit, the actions of Spirit, the action of Spirit, the reaction of Spirit, the reactions of Spirit, the reaction of Spirit, the feeling of Spirit, the feelings of Spirit, the feeling of Spirit, the situation of Spirit, the situations of Spirit, the situation of Spirit, the circumstance of Spirit, the circumstances of Spirit, the circumstance of Spirit, the environment of Spirit, the environments of Spirit, the environment of Spirit, the relationship of Spirit, the relationships of Spirit, the relationship of Spirit, the number of Spirit, the numbers of Spirit, the number of Spirit, the formula of Spirit, the formulas of Spirit, the formula of Spirit, the equation of Spirit, the equations of Spirit, the equation of Spirit, the theory of Spirit, the theories of Spirit, the theory of Spirit, the symbol of Spirit, the symbols of Spirit, the symbol of Spirit, the color of Spirit, the colors of Spirit, the color of Spirit, the thing of Spirit, the things of Spirit, the thing of Spirit, the way of Spirit, the ways of Spirit, the way of Spirit, the place of Spirit, the places of Spirit, the place of Spirit, the time of Spirit, the times of Spirit, the time of Spirit, the event of Spirit, the events of Spirit, the event of Spirit, the result of Spirit, the results of Spirit, the result of Spirit, the crown of Spirit, the crowns of Spirit, the crown of Spirit, the throne of Spirit, the thrones of Spirit, the throne of Spirit, the Spirit King, the Spirit Kings, the Spirit Kingdom, the Spirit Kingdoms, the Spirit King's subject, the Spirit King's subjects, the Spirit King's dominion, the Spirit King's dominions, the kingdom of Spirit, the kingdoms of Spirit, the kingdom of Spirit, the Spirit Queen, the Spirit Queens, the Spirit Queendom, the Spirit Queendoms, the Spirit Queen's subject, the Spirit Queen's subjects, the Spirit Queen's dominion, the Spirit Queen's dominions, the queendom of spirit, the queendoms of spirit, the queendom of spirit, the spirit prince, the spirit princes, the spirit princedom, the spirit princedoms, the spirit prince's subject, the spirit prince's subjects, the spirit prince's dominion, the spirit prince's dominions, the princedom of spirit, the princedoms of spirit, the princedom of spirit, the spirit princess, the spirit princesses, the spirit princessdom, the spirit princessdoms, the spirit princess's subject, the spirit princess's subjects, the spirit princess's dominion, the spirit princess's dominions, the princessdom of spirit, the princessdoms of spirit, the princessdom of spirit, the lord of spirit, the lords of spirit, the lord of spirit, the lordess of spirit, the lordesses of spirit, the lordess of spirit, the priest of spirit, the priests of spirit, the priest of spirit, the priestess of spirit, the priestesses of spirit, the priestess of spirit, the ritual of spirit, the rituals of spirit, the ritual of spirit, the shrine of spirit, the shrines of spirit, the shrine of spirit, the temple of spirit, the temples of spirit, the temple of spirit, the leader of spirit, the leaders of spirit, the leader of spirit, the follower of spirit, the followers of spirit, the follower of spirit, the natural substance of spirit, the natural substances of spirit, the natural substance of spirit, the supernatural substance of spirit, the supernatural substances of spirit, the supernatural substance of spirit, the temporal substance of spirit, the temporal substances of spirit, the temporal substance of spirit, the spiritual substance of spirit, the spiritual substances of spirit, the spiritual substance of spirit, the natural form of spirit, the natural forms of spirit, the natural form of spirit, the supernatural form of spirit, the supernatural forms of spirit, the supernatural form of spirit, the temporal form of spirit, the temporal forms of spirit, the temporal form of spirit, the spiritual form of spirit, the spiritual forms of spirit, the spiritual form of spirit, the age of spirit, the ages of spirit, the age of spirit, the era of spirit, the eras of spirit, the era of spirit, the awakener of spirit, the awakeners of spirit, the awakener of spirit, the awakening of spirit, the awakenings of spirit, the awakening of spirit, the realm of spirit, the realms of spirit, the realm of spirit, the dimension of spirit, the dimensions of spirit, the dimension of spirit, the zone of spirit, the zones of spirit, the zone of spirit, the frequency of spirit, the frequencies of spirit, the frequency of spirit, the century of spirit, the centuries of spirit, the century of spirit, the millennium of spirit, the millenniums of spirit, the millennium of spirit, the purpose of spirit, the purposes of spirit, the purpose of spirit, the meaning of spirit, the meanings of spirit, the meaning of spirit, the culture of spirit, the cultures of spirit, the culture of spirit, the demonstrator of spirit, the demonstrators of spirit, the demonstrator of spirit, the demonstration of spirit, the demonstrations of spirit, the demonstration of spirit, the manifester of spirit, the manifestors of spirit, the manifester of spirit, the manifestation of spirit, the manifestations of spirit, the manifestation of spirit, the presence of spirit, the presences of spirit, the presence of spirit, the glow of spirit, the glows of spirit, the glow of spirit, the goal of spirit, the goals of spirit, the goal of spirit, the plan of spirit, the plans of spirit, the plan of spirit, the book of spirit, the books of spirit, the book of spirit, the philosopher of spirit, the philosophers of spirit, the philosopher of spirit, the philosophy of spirit, the philosophies of spirit, the philosophy of spirit, the releaser of spirit, the releasers of spirit, the releaser of spirit, the release of spirit, the releases of spirit, the release of spirit, the variable of spirit, the variables of spirit, the variable of spirit, the cause of spirit, the causes of spirit, the cause of spirit, the effect of spirit, the effects of spirit, the effect of spirit, the journey of spirit, the journeys of spirit, the journey of spirit, the emergence of spirit, the emergences of spirit, the emergence of spirit, the source of spirit, the sources of spirit, the source of spirit, the originator of spirit, the originators of spirit, the originator of spirit, the origin of spirit, the origins of spirit, the origin of spirit, the forefather of spirit, the forefathers of spirit, the forefather of spirit, the foremother of spirit, the foremothers of spirit, the foremother of spirit, the ancestor of spirit, the ancestors of spirit, the ancestor of spirit, the descendant of spirit, the descendants of spirit, the descendant of spirit, the lineage of spirit, the lineages of spirit, the lineage of spirit, the heritage of spirit, the heritages of spirit, the heritage of spirit, the heir of spirit, the heirs of spirit, the heir of spirit, the co-heir of spirit, the co-heirs of spirit, the co-heir of spirit, the joint heir of spirit, the joint heirs of spirit, the joint heir of spirit, the dynasty of spirit, the dynasties of spirit, the dynasty of spirit, the force of spirit, the forces of spirit, the force of spirit, the law of spirit, the laws of spirit, the law of spirit, the pact of spirit, the pacts of spirit, the pact of spirit, the game of spirit, the games of spirit, the game of spirit, the mask of spirit, the masks of spirit, the mask of spirit, the armor of spirit, the armors of spirit, the armor of spirit, the sword of spirit, the swords of spirit, the sword of spirit, the shield of spirit, the shields of spirit, the shield of spirit, the force shield of spirit, the force shields of spirit, the force shield of spirit, the armored force shield of spirit, the armored force shields of spirit, the armored force shield of spirit, the champion of spirit, the champions of spirit, the champion of spirit, the guardian of spirit, the guardians of spirit, the guardian of spirit, the defender of spirit, the defenders of spirit, the defender of spirit, the protector of spirit, the protectors of spirit, the protector of spirit, the chant of spirit, the chants of spirit, the chant of spirit, the shape of spirit, the shapes of spirit, the shape of spirit, the cube of spirit, the cubes of spirit, the cube of spirit, the cuboid of spirit, the cuboids of spirit, the cuboid of spirit, the sphere of spirit, the spheres of spirit, the sphere of spirit, the spheroid of spirit, the spheroids of spirit, the spheroid of spirit, the prism of spirit, the prisms of spirit, the prism of spirit, the pyramid of spirit, the pyramids of spirit, the pyramid of spirit, the cylinder of spirit, the cylinders of spirit, the cylinder of spirit, the cone of spirit, the cones of spirit, the cone of spirit, the triangle of spirit, the triangles of spirit, the triangle of spirit, the circle of spirit, the circles of spirit, the circle of spirit, the semicircle of spirit, the semicircles of spirit, the semicircle of spirit, the square of spirit, the squares of spirit, the square of spirit, the rectangle of spirit, the rectangles of spirit, the rectangle of spirit, the parallelogram of spirit, the parallelograms of spirit, the parallelogram of spirit, the rhombus of spirit, the rhombuses of spirit, the rhombus of spirit, the trapezoid of spirit, the trapezoids of spirit, the trapezoid of spirit, the polygon of spirit, the polygons of spirit, the polygon of spirit, the pentagon of spirit, the pentagons of spirit, the pentagon of spirit, the hexagon of spirit, the hexagons of spirit, the hexagon of spirit, the septagon of spirit, the septagons of spirit, the septagon of spirit, the octagon of spirit, the octagons of spirit, the octagon of spirit, the nonagon of spirit, the nonagons of spirit, the nonagon of spirit, the decagon of spirit, the decagons of spirit, the decagon of spirit, the evolution of spirit, the evolutions of spirit, the evolution of spirit, the revolution of spirit, the revolutions of spirit, the revolution of spirit, the elemental art of spirit, the elemental arts of spirit, the elemental art of spirit, the elemental science of spirit, the elemental sciences of spirit, the elemental science of spirit, the elemental principle of spirit, the elemental principles of spirit, the elemental principle of spirit, the elemental technology of spirit, the elemental technologies of spirit, the elemental technology of spirit, the low elemental art of spirit, the low elemental arts of spirit, the low elemental art of spirit, the low elemental science of spirit, the low elemental sciences of spirit, the low elemental science of spirit, the low elemental principle of spirit, the low elemental principles of spirit, the low elemental principle of spirit, the low elemental technology of spirit, the low elemental technologies of spirit, the low elemental technology of spirit, the high elemental art of spirit, the high elemental arts of spirit, the high elemental art of spirit, the high elemental science of spirit, the high elemental sciences of spirit, the high elemental science of spirit, the high elemental principle of spirit, the high elemental principles of spirit, the high elemental principle of spirit, the high elemental technology of spirit, the high elemental technologies of spirit, the high elemental technology of spirit, the agent of spirit, the agents of spirit, the agent of spirit, the agency of spirit, the agencies of spirit, the agency of spirit, the amplifier of spirit, the amplifiers of spirit, the amplifier of spirit, the amplification of spirit, the amplifications of spirit, the amplification of spirit, the enhancer of spirit, the enhancers of spirit, the enhancer of spirit, the enhancement of spirit, the enhancements of spirit, the enhancement of spirit, the magnifier of spirit, the magnifiers of spirit, the magnifier of spirit, the magnification of spirit, the magnifications of spirit, the magnification of spirit, the influencer of spirit, the influencers of spirit, the influencer of spirit, the influence of spirit, the influences of spirit, the influence of spirit, the emanator of spirit, the emanators of spirit, the emanator of spirit, the emanation of spirit, the emanations of spirit, the emanation of spirit, the converger of spirit, the convergers of spirit, the converger of spirit, the convergence of spirit, the convergences of spirit, the convergence of spirit, the aura of spirit, the auras of spirit, the aura of spirit, the impression of spirit, the impressions of spirit, the impression of spirit, the intelligence of spirit, the intelligences of spirit, the intelligence of spirit, the sophistication of spirit, the sophistications of spirit, the sophistication of spirit, the genius of spirit, the geniuses of spirit, the genius of spirit, the polymath of spirit, the polymaths of spirit, the polymath of spirit, the psychic of spirit, the psychics of spirit, the psychic of spirit, the knowledge of spirit, the knowledges of spirit, the knowledge of spirit, the understanding of spirit, the understandings of spirit, the understanding of spirit, the wisdom of spirit, the wisdoms of spirit, the wisdom of spirit, the secret of spirit, the secrets of spirit, the secret of spirit, the mystery of spirit, the mysteries of spirit, the mystery of spirit, the revelation of spirit, the revelations of spirit, the revelation of spirit, the tactic of spirit, the tactics of spirit, the tactic of spirit, the strategy of spirit, the strategies of spirit, the strategy of spirit, the strength of spirit, the strengths of spirit, the strength of spirit, the might of spirit, the mights of spirit, the might of spirit, the power of spirit, the powers of spirit, the power of spirit, the authority of spirit, the authorities of spirit, the authority of spirit, the dominion of spirit, the dominions of spirit, the dominion of spirit, the rhythm of spirit, the rhythms of spirit, the rhythm of spirit, the melody of spirit, the melodies of spirit, the melody of spirit, the music of spirit, the musics of spirit, the music of spirit, the lyric of spirit, the lyrics of spirit, the lyric of spirit, the song of spirit, the songs of spirit, the song of spirit, the dance of spirit, the dances of spirit, the dance of spirit, the spirit of spirit, the spirits of spirit, the spirit of spirit, the soul of spirit, the souls of spirit, the soul of spirit, the body of spirit, the bodies of spirit, the body of spirit, the mark of spirit, the marks of spirit, the mark of spirit, the promise of spirit, the promises of spirit, the promise of spirit, the visionary of spirit, the visionaries of spirit, the visionary of spirit, the vision of spirit, the visions of spirit, the vision of spirit, the picture of spirit, the pictures of spirit, the picture of spirit, the sound of spirit, the sounds of spirit, the sound of spirit, the dung of spirit, the dungs of spirit, the dung of spirit, the language of spirit, the languages of spirit, the language of spirit, the communication of spirit, the communications of spirit, the communication of spirit, the people of spirit, the peoples of spirit, the people of spirit, the society of spirit, the societies of spirit, the society of spirit, the fortress of spirit, the fortresses of spirit, the fortress of spirit, the government of spirit, the governments of spirit, the government of spirit, the city of spirit, the cities of spirit, the city of spirit, the nation of spirit, the nations of spirit, the nation of spirit, the civilization of spirit, the civilizations of spirit, the civilization of spirit, the world of spirit, the worlds of spirit, the world of spirit,